This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
This is supposed to be here? Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. So I had the great pleasure of kicking off the first event here in Shlomo's house, and Be'ezras Hashem, this makom should continue to be a place of Torah, Chesed, Kiddush Hashem for many years to come. I thank Dr. Zakaim for graciously hosting me again and for her constant enthusiastic encouragement and her zrizos in running to amass the chusim. And Bershus the Rebbitzin.
Rabbi Glatstein, can I just interrupt for 1 second? People are asking on the Zoom what base Shlomo is. Like who it's in memory of? Yes.
Okay. Go for it. Okay.
Hi, I'm not used to doing this. It's an honor to have Rabbi Glatstein here. It's such an honor to have you in Brooklyn. Thank you so much, Rabbi Glatstein. It's an honor to have Rabbi Reisman here, my chavrusa, who has taken care of me from the beginning of my difficult journey. So I thank you so much, Rabbi Reisman. Okay, so the reason we are here in Beis Shlomo's house, we're now calling it Beis Shlomo, is because we have a very big, strong emunah in Hashem, and we know that the neshama continues to live on, and we continue to have a relationship with the neshama. And the only way to have a relationship with the neshama is to continue to doing Hashem's mitzvos. So it's our greatest honor that Hashem gave us the opportunity to build a house that is in honor of Shlomo, to build a house where we're doing mitzvahs constantly over and over. We already had Rabbi Glatstein here speaking, and that was incredibly amazing. And now we're running a program on Sunday mornings with Esha Torah, an interactive program from Yerushalayim, where Rabbi Berger, who many people know, is doing an interactive program for Kiruv from Yerushalayim on Zoom. There's some wonderful things about Zoom. And we've done shidduch events over here, so we're just continuing to do beautiful mitzvahs in this house. Le'ilun Nishmas Shlomo Eliezer ben Harav Yaakov Zakon. And it is my greatest honor now.
Okay, so I was asked to speak about the subject of Emunas Chachamim, Atzas Chachamim. This is a very difficult subject for me to speak about. I don't think I ever spoke about this subject before. So, biz chuschem, hopefully we'll come up with some important ideas that we could focus on and some practical ideas that could heighten our appreciation of Chachmei Yisrael. And I think the first thing we have to establish is what our attitude should be toward Chachmei Yisrael. And what are Chachmei Yisrael? Who are they? How do we identify them? So I want to start with a story. In 1978, in the year Taf Shin Lamed Ches, Maran Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Zechatzak Davracha was invited by the Spanish community in Spain to inaugurate a yeshiva in Madrid. And in the context of this visit, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef would meet the King of Spain, King Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos reigned in Spain from 1975 to 2014. In 2014, he abdicated in favor of his son, King Felipe. Now, King Juan Carlos, Rabbi Ovadia had the utmost respect for him, not only as a powerful monarch, not only as a world leader, but as a very sagacious, a very wise person. In fact, Rabbi Ovadia held that upon seeing Juan Carlos, he needed to make a bracha. Now, the typical bracha you would make on a king is shachalak mikavoidai lebasar vadam, that God gave from His honor to flesh and blood. In other words, if you see a president, if you see a prime minister, if you see a king, the correct bracha to make would be shachalak mikavoidai lebasar vadam. However, Rabbi Ovadia held not only should you make the bracha shachalak mikavoidai lebasar vadam, Rabbi Ovadia held that Juan Carlos was so smart. He was a mathematician. He knew many languages. He knew history, philosophy. Rabbi Ovadia held that upon seeing this king, you should make the bracha asher chalak mechachmasoi lebasar vadam. That's the bracha you make on a wise person. So Rabbi Ovadia has this dilemma: what bracha should he make on Juan Carlos? Should he make asher chalak mikvoidoi lebasar v'dam, or asher chalak mechachmasai? And actually, as recorded in the Sefer Shiur Rishon L'Tzion, Rabbi Vadia said, both brachos should be made, incorporated in one bracha, and Rabbi Vadia made the following bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shechalak mikavoidoi umechachmasai lebasar v'dam. So at this historic meeting, King Juan Carlos asked Rabbi Vadia the following stunning question. So I'm used to, I speak in Queens, in Cedarhurst. I usually have a lot of Sfardim. Do we have any Sfardim here tonight? Great. Okay. King Juan Carlos wanted to know, is there any difference between the Torah of Ashkenazim and the Torah of Sfardim? Or are they like two different religions? That was the kasha of King Juan Carlos. And Rav Vadia said, actually, they're exactly the same. There are no fundamental differences. Even in their Sefer Torah, an Ashkenazi could go into a Sephardi shul and be Yotzei Kriyas HaTorah, even l'chadchila, and a Sephardi could go into an Ashkenazi shul and be Yotzei Kriyas HaTorah. There are no fundamental differences in halacha between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Okay. By the way, Rabbi Vadia writes, we entered the palace and Rabbi Vadia was together with his Rebbitzin Margalit. By the way, you know how the shidduch was made? Somebody suggested to Rebbitzin Margalit's dad, to his father, you know, I have this great bacher in the yeshiva. So young Ovadia, he knocks on the door, and Margalit's father starts speaking to him and learning, and they're talking back and forth, the Rajba, the Ran, Rabbeinu Tam, and the conversation, a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and she's waiting there all made up, you know, she's all ready for the date. It's her 12 o'clock at night, and finally, Margalit's father brings Ovadia into the house, and she's half asleep, and they're half asleep, and they said, no, they can't go out 12 o'clock at night, so they pushed off the date to the next Tuesday. Now, this girl, she was not happy about what happened. I mean, this bacher, he's going out with her or her father. And she was really upset. She said, I don't know I want to go out with this guy. He came to go out with me, not to talk to schmooze with you. He should have realized that if he gets involved. So he came the next night, and again, he asked, how's yeshiva? Back and forth, learning, hour after hour after hour. And she's furious. She said, I'm not going out with this guy. I don't care how big of a Talmud Chacham he is. He's not a mensch. What is this? He came to go out with me, not with you. He said, he could be the Gadol Hador. You got to give him a shot. It's a true story. So he said, okay, last chance. And he comes in. And the father said, look, we're not talking learning. I'm just giving you the piece of cake. You're going to have a drink, and you go out. Where they went, who knows? And Rav Vadia makes them a zoynos, and they said, okay, goodbye, just make a bracha achrona. Rav Vadia said, you don't make a bracha achrona, it's not a kazayas. He said, but you ate it. And again, back and forth, a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. She tells her father, I don't want to look at this guy. I'm not going out with him. This is the third time already. He came to go out with me. And all he wants to do is he wants to talk. I'm not looking for a chavrusa. I'm looking for a husband. She would not go out with him. So her father had to go to Ovadia and apologize. I would love to take you as a prospective son-in-law. There's nothing I could do. He said, give me 2 minutes with her. So, okay, whatever you want. He goes into the room, comes out, Mazel Tov, they're engaged. He said, what did you tell her? Well, she didn't even want to look at you. I told her one thing. I said, you give me Olam Hazeh, and I'll give you a big share in Olam Haba. And that's how the shidduch was made. Anyway, Rabbi Vadia says he came into the room together with his wife, and she had just traveled, and she was flushed, and it was hot in the palace. I remember I was once in Spain, and they bring you into these big shuls, and the sun is beating down, and it's like 200 degrees in the shul, and you're about to faint, and the queen, who is sitting next to King Juan Carlos, she's looking at Margalit, and she sees how flushed she is. She sees she's about to faint. She gets out of her throne. She goes to the window. She opens up the window. Says Rabbi Vadia Yosef, that was the fulfillment of the Navi. V'hayu melachim oimnayich v'soreiseim nikayosayich. That when Mashiach comes, the queens will attend to your needs. That was fulfilled in the Queen Juan Carlos serving my wife. Then King Carlos said to Rabbi Vadia, I want to express to you my pain, my regret for what we did to your people 500 years ago. I want you to know that when the Jews left Spain, they went to Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, they published one of the first Bibles, one of the first editions of Tanakh. I have that edition. I learn from it every day, and I appreciate Chachmas Yisrael. This is the most intelligent body of wisdom that's available in the world. And then King Juan Carlos asked Rabbi Vadia the best kasha I've ever heard. You ready for this? He says, Avadia, Rabbi, how many Sfardim live in Israel today? Vadia said about half the Israeli population today are Sfardim. So Vadia says, by the way, Sfardim includes Eidos HaMizrach, Jews from Babylon, Jews from Iran, from Yemen, from Morocco, from Egypt, from Syria, they're all Sfardim. Frekt, King Juan Carlos, Akasha. Sfardi means someone from Spain. Why would you call a Jew from Yemen, who's been in Yemen for 1,000 years, doesn't even know where Spain is? Why would you call a Jew from Morocco? Why would you call a Jew from Egypt? Why would you call a Jew from Mexico? Why would you call a Jew from any of these countries Sfardim? They were never in Spain, nor do they want to go to Spain. Sfardi means a Spaniard. Why would you call all these Jews Sfardim? It's a good kasha. You ever think of that question? Says Rabbi Vadia Yosef, this is the Yesod that I would like you to take with you. That Klal Yisrael is different than any other nation. All other nations are identified by geographic location or ethnicity. But as we know, Reb Sadia Gaon says, Ein umasenu uma ela b'Torah. We are identified by the Torah. Who was the greatest sage who ever lived in Spain? The Rambam, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, who was born in 1135, who was nifter in 1204. By the way, the Rambam was born in the year Taf Tzadihei. Okay? Taf Tzadihei, that's the year 4895. Now the Gra teaches us, anybody know how many psukim in the Chumash? 5,845 psukim. You ever count? 5,845 psukim. Each pasuk corresponds to another year of world history. Okay? 5,845. So we're almost there. We're almost up to the last pasuk. That means every pasuk corresponds to a different year. The Rambam was born in the year 4,895. Go to the 4,895th pasuk in Chumash. Hayel Moshe Beyer Es HaTorah Hazois Lemar. Moshe explained the Torah to the Jewish people. The year of the birth of the Rambam. So the Rambam was the greatest sage who ever lived in Spain. All Sfardim, whether you come from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Morocco, Yemen, India, they all have one thing in common. They've accepted the authority of the Rambam. And in Judaism, you're not where you live, you're not what your father does, you are who your rabbi is, who your Rav is, who your Rebbe is. That's your identification. So if you accept the Rambam, even if you're from India, from Yemen, from Morocco, you're a Sfardi. You come from Spain. Your identity is who your Rav is. That's, unfortunately today, many people, where do you daven? I daven next to my friend. I daven where my friends daven. That's not the way to choose where to pray. That's not a way to choose what shul to belong to. That's not a way to choose where to identify. A Jew is identified by who their Rebbe is. All Jews from all of these various countries are called Sfardim because they've accepted the Rambam. And I think that's a very important yesod, that one has to try to connect to Chachamim, to Rabbanim, to Tzadikim in a way where that becomes your identity. I am who my Rav is, who my Rebbe is. So how do we identify a Chacham? What are the characteristics of a Talmid Chacham? Who should be my Rebbe? Who should be my Rav? Here it goes. Let's try this. There's a Gemara Masechta Pesachim. The Gemara says there's a man by the name of Shimon HaAmsuni. Shimon HaAmsuni was an expert in the following word. He knew how to darshan the word es. You ever see the word es in the Chumash? Yeah? Bereshis bar lakim es hashamayim ve es haaretz. Very good. BYA, excellent, right? Ve haaretz haisa soihu vava. My wife went to BYA, right? Ve haaretz haisa soihu vavayu es. There's a lot of es. By the way, v'halakim nisa es Avraham. You ever wonder? God tested Avraham. Who else did he test besides Avraham? Anybody know? Yitzchak. Yitzchak, it says, obviously he tested. I don't need the word es to include Yitzchak. We know Yitzchak is one who was on the Akeh. Who else did he test? I would like to, he tested Sarah. Ultimately, in the end of the day, Avraham and Yitzchak, they went home. Sarah was the one who she gave up her neshama on the Akedah. So it was really a great test for Sarah. Every word is, every S is significant. By the way, there's a sefer today, Kol Esin Shabbat fat sefer. Every single S in the Torah is expounded. What does this S come to include? And Shimon HaAmsuni, he's the world's leading expert in the word S. And he got up to the following pasuk: Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. Fear God. The only problem is, who else should you fear other than God? Your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, your brother, your boss, your teacher, your principal. Who else should you fear other than Hashem? So Shimon HaAmsuni, he stroked his beard and he thought and he contemplated, and he wrote about 10 volumes of Sfarim explaining every S. He took all the Sfarim and he put them in Geniza. Whoa. And he broke the shelf. I could still come back, right? He took all the books. It's for effect. He took all of his drashas and he put them in Geniza. He said, I was wrong. Every last teaching, every last year I ever gave was wrong. I made a mistake. S does not mean anything. S is meaningless. Because he got up to this one pasuk, which by the way is in Parshas Ekev, all the way at the end of Devarim, all the way in Sefer Devarim, the third Parsha on Devarim. And he said, I must have made a mistake. It must be S is not significant. Until Rabbi Akiva came along. You know Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva, he didn't specifically specialize in the word S, but he said, no, there is someone in this world that you should fear other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on par with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, equal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is Ad Sheba Rabbi Akiva V'darash Es Hashem Le'kecha Tira L'Rabbois Talmidei Chachamim. And Shimon HaAmsuni said, really? You're supposed to fear a Talmid Chacham like you fear the Rebbeinu Shalom? And Rabbi Akiva said, yeah. In other words, in the mind of a Jew, there's a Rebbeinu Shalom, and the Talmid Chacham is in a similar realm, obviously not as high, but in the similar realm. Now, Shimon HaAmsuni, let's analyze this for a moment. I'm sure Shimon HaAmsuni, when he was trying to figure out what do we do with that word S, it crossed his mind, maybe S comes to include a Talmid Chacham. It's just he never had the gums, he didn't have the audacity to say that you should fear a Talmid Chacham like you fear Hashem. I mean, that sounds a little bit extreme, that you should fear a Talmid Chacham like you fear Hashem. But Rabbi Akiva said, no, you should. And Shimon HaAmsuni agreed. So why didn't Shimon HaAmsuni think of that possibility? So this is what Reb Gifter would say. You ready for this? Shimon HaAmsuni comes to this pasuk as Hashem Le'kecha Tira, and he knows maybe it's coming to say you should fear Talmid Chacham like you fear Hashem. But how could anybody ever dream of the possibility that a Talmid Chacham is in the same league as HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And therefore he dropped everything, and he took all his books, and he put it on the shelf, and the shelf broke, and then he put it into Geniza, and that was the end of his career of darshaning the S. Because he didn't think that a Talmid Chacham could actually be considered and deemed like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Rabbi Akiva was watching this whole story. And Rabbi Akiva saw a man who wrote 10 books. And those books were full of what all the Essen in the Torah are teaching me. And when he got up to the pasuk of Es Hashem Elokecha Tira, he had such midas ha'emes. He had such honesty. You know, he could have finagled and said, all right, B'doichek Es Hashem Elokecha Tira teaches me you should fear a Talmid Chacham like you fear Hashem. I know it's not a great pshat, but look, I have all these books and I can't throw the books in the garbage, so I'm going to go with this pshat, and hopefully nobody's paying too much attention to this particular drasha. After all, there are another 500 essen that I said a good pshat in. But Shimon HaMsuni didn't do that. His quality of honesty, his midas ha'emes, was so profound, was so strong in him, that he couldn't say something that was not absolutely emes la'amitai, that he decided it's better to take everything that he ever taught in his life and say, I was wrong about everything I ever taught. Because when Rabbi Akiva saw a man with such honesty, Rabbi Akiva said, yeah, it's possible for a human being to reach a level almost like the Rebbeinu Shalom. You know why Shimon HaMsuni didn't think it was possible? Because he was it. He was the person. He never saw such godly midas. But Rabbi Akiva, watching a human being take everything they ever learned and was willing to say, you know what? If it's not emes, it's not emes. Rabbi Akiva said, Es Hashem Elokecha Tira l'Rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. So I'm going to veer a little bit and to speak a little bit about this midah, midas ha'emes, in terms of identifying the quality of Talmidei Chachamim. Yaakov Avinu in this week's Parsha, Rivka said, hey, Yaakov, this is your last chance. Dad's going to give the bracha to Esav, and if Esav gets the bracha, we're up the creek without a paddle. The Jewish people are going to be lost. So you got to put on your Esav costume, and you got to dress up like Esav, and you got to steal the brachas. So what does Yaakov say? Yaakov says, Ula yemusheni avi, maybe Dad's going to feel me. V'hayisi be'einav kemisateya. I'm going to be like an imposter in his eyes. Says the Gemara, Kal hamachlif b'diburai ki'ilu oived avodah zarah. Anyone who changes their word, deviates their words, it's like serving idols. Shenemar, Ula yemusheni avi v'hayisi be'einav kemisateya, and it says about avodah zarah, Hevel hema masei tatuim. It says avodah zarah is deceitful, the work of trickery. So it says tatuim by avodah zarah. It says kimisateya by lying. Lying is like oved avodah zarah. Listen to the story. Okay, the story is brought by the Marsha. There was once a Rasha. The guy did every aver in the book, and he wanted to change, but he was too far gone. So he went to a Chacham. And he asked the Chacham, what should I do? Don't tell me to do any mitzvahs. I can't do any mitzvahs. The Chacham said, no problem. Just take upon yourself one thing. He said, what's the one thing? How about, I won't eat gebraks on Pesach. No, the Chacham said, no, none of that. I want you to take on something very important. Never lie. So, okay, no problem. I'll never lie. So he continued his bad practices. He murdered, he stole, he continued to do every aver. One day he was going to New Jersey. And he was going there to rob the bank. And a guy asked, hey pal, where are you going? And he remembered that he said he would never lie. So he said, I'm going to New Jersey to rob the bank. Bracha v'hatzlacha, the guy said, I have a great day. And the guy continued off on his way. He then went, he was driving on the Outer Bridge crossing. And he went through a toll booth, and the guy said, hey, what's going on? You look like you're up to something. Yeah. Where are you going, he says. He says, I'm going to New Jersey to rob a bank. He said, great. Isn't everybody? Have a great day. And the guy said, now I have two witnesses that know I'm going to rob the bank, and they could testify against me, and they can incriminate me. And the guy started to do tshuva, and he began the process, and he became Tzaddik Yisod Olam, a Gadol Hadar. He's now a Metsuyan in Lakewood. He's a Rosh Chabura. And, okay. That's the story. Not with the Rosh Chabura and Lakewood part, but everything else, that's what the Marsha says. No, that's just a joke, okay? Don't worry. And
he won't go out with a girl because if she didn't go to that one.
Exactly, right? So, that's the story of the Marsha. Our Rosh Hashiva, Rav Henech Leibowitz asked the following question on the Marsha. Why did the guy have to say that he's going to New Jersey to rob the bank? The guy didn't ask what you're doing in New Jersey. He just says where you're going. So he should say, I'm going to New Jersey. There are a lot of things you could do in New Jersey. Robbing the bank is not the only thing you could do in New Jersey. He didn't ask him what you're doing. He said where you're going. So the guy's not stupid. He should just say, I'm going to New Jersey. Nobody asked him what you're doing in New Jersey. What do you see from this Marsha? That if you say words, that the implication of those words are innocuous. In other words, if he would have answered, I'm going to New Jersey, which implies he's going to New Jersey for nothing bad, and the listener would get the implication that he's not going to do anything wrong, that's sheker, that's a lie. By the standards of the Torah, the value of emes is not only to say something that's 100% true, to say something that gives the implication contrary to what you're doing, that is sheker according to the Torah. That's a different standard of emes than we're used to. Halavai, we should live up to that standard. I'll give you another example. Remember the story about the two mothers? They both had babies, and one mother rolled over the baby, killed the baby. Now you have two mothers, one baby. They come in front of Shlomo HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech says, great idea, we'll chop the baby in half. One lady says, great idea. The other one says, no, don't do it. What did Shlomo HaMelech say? Tenu La es hayeled, v'hames loy timusuhu. He imai. Give her the child. Don't kill the child. She's the mother. Remember that? You know, there's a similar story back in the shtetl in Europe. There were two young ladies. They were both looking for a prospective chassan, and both mothers are looking for the chassan, and they both hear from the shadchan about the best guy in Lakewood. And they both make up with the shadchan that the best guy is going to be coming on the train, and both mother-in-laws go out to the train. The problem was only one guy showed up. The other guy didn't make it. And now the two prospective mother-in-laws are fighting over one chassan. So they don't know what to do. So they bring the guy to the bezdin. The Rav says, give me the shchita knife. What are you going to do? I'm going to cut him in half. So one lady says, no. The other one says, cut him. The Rav says, that's the mother-in-law. Yeah, so that's the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech. Anyway, the Gemara Makos asked the following question. Don't laugh, it's not funny. It's chas v'shalom, right? You have to be kind to your son-in-laws. Never cut them in half. So the Gemara asked the following question. The Gemara Makos says, how could Shlomo HaMelech say, he imai, but he doesn't know that's the mother. He's just relying on what's called chazak. He's relying on a presumptive status that if it would be the mother would never allow to cut the baby in half. So how could Shlomo say, he imai? Answers the Gemara, Shlomo didn't say he imai. He just said, give her the child. And a bas kol cried out and said, that's the mother. Shlomo can't say he imai. He had uncontrovertible proof that this is the mother. Halachically, he was allowed to award this woman the child. What would be wrong with Shlomo saying the words, this is the mother? After all, the Navi says that when Klal Yisrael heard about the great wisdom of Shlomo, they were so inspired, they thought he was like a prophet. So yet the Gemara asks, Shlomo still cannot say the words, he imai. You know why? Because if you're 99% sure of something, and you have every proof in the world, but you didn't see it with your own eyes, according to Midas HaEmes, you cannot say this is what happened. You could act that way, you could award this woman the child, you could follow that in halacha, you can't say the words, he imai. This is Midas HaEmes. This was the midah that Rabbi Akiva saw in Shimon HaAmsuni. He saw a man that was willing to take every drasha, halacha, shiur that he ever gave, and because he couldn't say pshat in Es Hashem Lekecha Tira, he's willing to abandon everything that he taught. Rabbi Akiva said, this is the madrega of Talmidei Chachamim, Es Hashem Lekecha Tira, they're on par with the Rebbeinu Shalom. Here's another thing. Most people, they have shittais. Never argue with someone who has a shita. Because if they have a shita, what does a shita mean? Something they thought about one time 50 years ago, they never revisited it, but they're so stubborn that they'll never think about it. That's what a shita is. Look at the Chachamim Yisrael. Look at how steadfast they held their shittais. Shimon HaAmsuni darshan the word S thousands of times. He gets up to one S, it doesn't fit in, he can't darshan that S. Does he say, well, my shita is, S means something, so let me figure out some kind of way to explain this S? He says, you know what? I'm willing to revisit and think again about that steadfast belief that I hold true, and if it doesn't work out today, I could retract, think over something that I believed for 50 years and say, you know what? I'm going to retract, and maybe this won't be my shita. Shitas are very important. It's very important to have ideals. It's very important to have values. But it's also very important to be honest. And they could always be reassessed. They could always be thought of again. They could always be reevaluated. These are the midos of the Chachamim Yisrael. Another important nekuda that we see from this Gemara. Who do you think in this world is most dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Like, who's on the highest level? You have big tzaddikim, you have big balei chesed, you have mikubalim, right? There are a lot of great people in this world. What's the highest darga, the highest madrega that somebody could reach, that this person we could say is the closest entity that we have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You have tzaddikim, mikubalim, balei chesed, Balei Ruach HaKodesh, Balei Moifsim. Who do you think it is? What would you say? Someone's in a jam. They need an eitzah. Who do you go to? Chazon Ish says, you see from this Gemara, Rabbi Akiva is dealing with a bomb. You know what that bomb is? S. Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. There's something in this world that's equal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as much as it's possible to say such a thing. Now he's evaluating there are many great people vying for this candidacy. All the Mekubalim are lining up. We want to be the person who is Es Hashem Lekecha Tira. All the great Balei Chesed, all the great Tzaddikim. Who made it? Who won the candidacy? Who got the job to be included in Es Hashem Lekecha Tira? The rabbis? Talmidei Chachamim. Which means, on the pedestal of who is most dear and closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, greater than the tzaddik and the chassid and all the various accolades in Yiddishkeit that there are, the highest madrega. In other words, if you wanted to know, I'm in a jam, I need to ask a question, I need to get a bracha, I need help. What's the highest madrega? Es Hashem Elokecha Tira, the rabbis? Talmidei Chachamim. That's a very important yesod. That's something that many people are confused about. People run here, run there. Brachais, segulais, the highest madrega, the rabbis Talmidei Chachamim. Here's another idea. The Dubna Magid wants to ask the Vilna Gaon the following question. How do you influence somebody? You ever wonder about that? You ever try to influence someone? How do you influence somebody? The Vilna Gaon said, don't even bother. Nobody pays attention. You could darshan, you could speak, you could give shiurim. It could even be on Torah anytime. Right? Could I tell them about Torah anytime? Why not, right? If you're bored, go on to Torah anytime. There's good stuff on that. The Vilna Gaon said that when Rabbanim, when Tzaddikim, when parents speak, nobody is listening. Everyone is tuned out. Nobody cares about anything that anyone says. Is that true? Yeah, it's absolutely true. The Vilna Gaon says there's only one way to influence somebody. If you work on yourself and you fill yourself up with so much Yiras Shamayim, with so much Torah, where now your ideals, your Torah, your Yiras Shamayim is overflowing, then it overflows from you and automatically enters the next person. But you're going to give a class, you're going to write on the board, okay, everyone, do A, and then do B, and then think C. Nobody's paying attention. Everyone's thinking about when you're going to finish talking so they can leave already. The only way to influence somebody is you have to be so mole v'gadish of what you believe in that it automatically overflows to other people. In fact, you know the Gemara. The Gemara says Moshe Rabbeinu comes down from Har Sinai and he says, Rabbi Sai, Ma Hashem lekecha shoyel me'imach. What does God ask of you? Remember when Moshe Rabbeinu said that? What does God ask of you? And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Ki im liyira es Hashem. All you got to do is fear me. So the Gemara says, sounds like fear of Hashem is a very easy thing. Atu yira milsa zutrusihi, is fear a small thing? Remember what the Gemara answers? The Gemara says, legabe Moshe milsa zutrusi. To Moshe Rabbeinu, it's a very small thing. So what's the question? The question is, great for Moshe Rabbeinu, but he's speaking to people, speaking to Klal Yisrael. So how could Moshe Rabbeinu say, all God asks of you is to fear Him, and for Moshe Rabbeinu it's very easy, but to everybody else listening, it's impossible. Right? Imagine, this nuclear physicist says, okay, all you need to do to master nuclear physics is understand the great formula E equals mc squared, and it's based on this textbook, which is 30 million pages. That's all you need to do. And you're looking at the guy like he's off the wall. It's easy for you, but you're talking to me, and I don't understand what you're talking about. So what's Moshe Rabbeinu saying? All God asks of you is to fear Him, but for us it's very hard. Very nice for Moshe Rabbeinu, it's easy. Says the Dubna Magid, based on the Vilna Gaon, we understand that what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Klal Yisrael is, all God asks of you is to fear me. And for you guys, it's very hard. But Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, but for me, it's easy. And therefore, if you want it to be easy for you, you got to hang around me. And since it's easy for me, it's going to rub off on you. That's, says the Dubna Magid, what the Gemara means, is Hashem lekecha tira l'rabbis talmidei chachamim. You want to have your Shamayim? You have to know who to hang out with. You have to know who to associate with. Associate with those people that your Shamayim is easy for, and then automatically it will rub off on you. So, I remember I once learned with a gentleman in Queens. He was a big philanthropist, and somehow we used to daven in the same shul. He was a Holocaust survivor. He came from the city of Krakow. And he published the Sfarim of the Megala Amukais. And he once said the following idea. He wasn't a rabbi, he was a layman, but he said a really nice idea. He said, the Gemara tells us, what kind of rabbi should you choose? Who should your Rav be? Who should your Rabbi be? Im doime rabbi lemalach Hashem tzavakos yivakesh Torah mipiyu. If the Rebbe is like an angel, you should seek out Torah from him. Great. What does an angel look like? How do you know if the Rebbe is like a Malach Hashem Tzavakos? So he said as follows. He said, we know three things about a Malach. One thing we know is, Ragleim Regel Yashara. Yeah, they have one foot. They're a Yashar. They're straight. They're a straight person. They're not farkrump. They're not finaglers. They're a straight shooter. That's the first thing you need to look for. Ragleihem Regel Yashara. Number two, Pneihem Pnei Adam. They look like a human being. They're a regular person. They're down to earth. They're not floating up in the Shamayim. They know Vas Titzach down here in this world. They know what's going on in this world. That's the second quality. Here's the third quality. It says, B'shtayim Yichase Panav. With two, how many wings do the Malachim have? 6 wings. With 2 wings they cover their face. V'shtayim yichase ragla, with 2 wings they cover their feet. Uv'shtayim yo'oifef, and with 2 wings they're not waving all of their ammunition. You know only a little bit of what they know, but they're covering up the rest. You don't know everything. They don't have to let out everything. They don't let every cat out of the bag. They don't feel they need to let you know everything that they know. Anivos, humility. These are the 3 characteristics of the Rebbe. Ragleim regel yeshara, they're straight. Pneim pnei adam, they're a regular human being. Only uv'shtayim yo'oifef, but with the other 2, they're yechase fanav v'yechase raglav. So not every great person is the right Rav, Rebbe, Tzaddik. Just because they seem that way, they look that way, it requires a investigation. A person has to know who to choose, how to choose them, what characteristics to look for. But once somebody identifies, this is somebody worthy of my admiration, my respect, then one has to attach themselves to Talmidei Chachamim, to learn from them, because what becomes easy for them becomes easy for you. Their Yirah Shamayim will become your Yirah Shamayim. Their Torah will become your Torah. And then you identify yourself by your association with them. And you could come from Yemen, Morocco, or Flatbush. But if your Rebbe or Rav is Harav so-and-so, that becomes part of your identity. So I hope some of these thoughts will prove to be meaningful, and these are some ideas that we could, Be'ezus Hashem, think about and perhaps incorporate. And when a person is mistabik to Talmidei Chachamim, you come under the protection of the Talmidei Chachamim. You come under the protection of the Torah. And that's the greatest protection we can have. And therefore we're mispalo, every Monday and Thursday, we say Yehi Ratzain. Yehi Ratzon L'fanecha Hashem Elokeinu shetekayim banu Chachmei Yisrael. We daven every Monday and Thursday. The Rebbe Shem should preserve the Chachmei Yisrael. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu preserve the Chachmei Yisrael for all of us until the Yemais HaMashiach. B'mher v'yameinu. Amen.
Anyone have a question? We'll go. I have a question. Do you think it's important for a girl who's dating to ask the boy that she's dating, who is your Rav?
Absolutely.
So, and do you also think it's important for the girl and boy to share the same Rav? Or is that, like, should a husband and wife have the same Rav, or that's not necessarily the case?
Look, if they're coming from different communities, in the beginning, it's very unlikely that they're going to have the same Rav. Naturally, over the course of time, it's probably a good idea if that ultimately happens.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.